Hello, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, and somewhere else. I forget where we were streaming. Such is the power of the modern internet. Thanks for joining me live. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. I actually am streaming twice today on this Tuesday. Earlier today, I had High Impact Tuesday, a new show. It's not really a show. I'm not going to make it a podcast. It's just a kind of a... how would you describe it, Andy?
Those short form data points that you came up with early on in Data Driven, those were wildly popular, still are very popular. I don't know what's right, an update point. I don't know what to call it. It's a great idea. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I like it because, I blog a lot and there's a lot of news. And I think this is just a good way of explaining, I'm sure there's a number of blog posts out there where people why the heck did he put this on his blog? Not all, but every once in a while.
Sure.
Like the one today about the artificial chlorophyll.
Yeah.
Why would he put that? So I kind of, talk about that. And I'm trying to develop the idea. Maybe it'll be a podcast show. For now, it's just going to be a LinkedIn Live or live streaming thing. Where, I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll tell you, this is where I thought you were going, and I love the way you're doing this. You're repurposing content. So
yes.
Some people are more visual reader type people. They're going to glom right onto the stuff you post. But what you did today was you actually reused and repurposed that written content into verbal, and that's perfect for people who are the opposite. They need to hear it.
Absolutely. I think I've been more aware of how different learning styles are. I've always thought about them, but particularly with the kids going back to school virtually, I think it's a little bit more real now.
Well, talk about repurposing. I mean, you've got that in concert with all of your studying and your bajillion certifications. A lot of the later ones have been AI, machine learning.
Right.
So it fits, Frank.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And it's a nice kind of review because sometimes it's very easy to get lost in the feed and I've been working on posting a lot more and I think I'm doing a pretty good job of that, but sometimes it's important to kind of stop and say, okay, this is why I posted this. You should check that out.
Right.
And I like to do the thing where there's this will have an impact on you right away. This will have an impact in the future, or this is going to be a medium term type thing.
Yep.
So we're all about impact here at Data Driven, whether it's Impact Quantum, High Impact Tuesdays.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so speaking of impact, you, sir, have had positive impact on people's lives, haven't you?
Frank, it's a huge honor. Back at the end of March, we were just beginning to lock down. We were going to check again. And at the end of March, they actually did. In the middle of March, they said we're going to lock down. We'll look again at the end. And I put a thing out on my blog and I said, hey, if you've lost your job due to the pandemic, because it was just starting back then, if you remember, people were losing their jobs. I said, if you lost your job, I've got this training that I sell. I'd be happy to give you training if you're interested in doing it. Just fill out this form. And what you have up there on the screen is andyleonard.blog/lost_job. If you go there, even now, and I said I'd do it until the pandemic was over, until it's stopped, so people stop losing their job because of it. And I'm delivering training. I started today. It goes through next Thursday, every weekday from now till a week from Thursday.
Nice.
And I charge for these. I'm not cheap, and I think it's good training. I'm biased, but I'll let people come in for free, fill out the form. Drop me an email. The form actually sends me the email. I'll email you back with more instructions. And there are actually 2/3 of my students today in this first day of this training from zero to SSIS. 2/3 were students that were attending for free because they lost their jobs.
Wow. And you got a feedback from somebody.
Yeah, one of my former students over the summer, like I said, I started this back in March, and I'm not sure when it came in. I anonymized it, but that's a screenshot of the email, anonymized. And that man, I came back from lunch and popped open the email, and there it was. And I just can't tell you. I almost cried, Frank.
That's
It
cool,
was
man. That's
it's
cool.
just so. The guy wrote and said, "I got a job thanks to your help," and I
That's
was just
cool.
like, awesome.
I mean, it's tough when you lose a job. I mean, it's one of those stressful, high stressful things, you know.
Yeah, we've
And
both been there, Frank.
we've
We've
both
both
been,
been.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. Actually, it was 4 years ago this week or next week. I got riffed from Microsoft.
Gosh.
It's crazy, you know. And that was it's not a bajillion, although thank you. That was 66 certifications ago.
No.
67 and 68 are in the queue. So
And what you did was we use this word a lot, and it can have negative connotations. We're not meaning anything negative by it, but you weaponized your job loss,
Right.
and you turned it into motivation.
right,
And I used this example before, the Dune series by Frank Herbert. It's a great series, and one of the tenets of this is they're looking for this special person who's going to come out of this, and it's a male that has to transmute this poison to keep it from killing them. And no male has been able to do it before; it's only been females. And one male does transmute the poison, and that's another way I think of saying what we mean by weaponize. We're taking the junk in,
right.
and out of it we are using it for motivation for very positive stuff.
Right, and you know,
So I
it's
believe, yes, Mark,
it was Moadib.
yes,
That's what I thought.
yeah,
I don't know enough. I only know a little bit about Dune. Like my favorite. I know there's another Dune movie coming out, but I did like the sci-fi interpretation. The Sci-Fi Channel interpretation was actually pretty good.
I didn't watch that, so I'll say I haven't watched it yet. It's not that
Okay.
I didn't. Yeah, you liked
the
it. That's good.
Yeah, the movie. We have some comments. Hey, Mark. I know Mark. Mark was actually. I was on a call, and he was saying that he has some thoughts about quantum computing and quantum physics. So then we'd definitely love to have him on the show.
Yes, I was waiting for that. You invited him, right?
I did invite him. I think I should probably follow up with another message, but yes,
Come on, Mark.
because we were quickly approaching the outer limits of what my understanding is of some of the quantum physics aspects of this, and it's definitely it's definitely we're coming towards the end of that. But we do have some folks. We are lining up with some interesting potential guests. Some interesting organizations have been like, "Hey, a podcast about quantum computing. That would be interesting. We'd love to talk about that." So,
Yeah, great.
you know,
Let's have Mark on. You know qubits, do you?
yeah,
Awesome.
he knows qubits. Awesome. Yeah, it's actually very exciting. There's a one of the courses I took, and now you're done. That's
Now
funny.
he's done. Yes,
Now
that's
he's
fine.
done. But you know what, Mark? You're still ahead of 80% of the population because you know qubits. Maybe even 90%. I don't know. Have to. 99% of all statistics are made up, right?
There we go. Frank, you were mentioning some courses that you've taken, certifications. I want to throw out here a kudos to Microsoft. They have
Yes.
also engaged in this idea of helping train people. I think their focus is not so much pandemic, although it probably was maybe moved up. Maybe that moved up their timeline. But they are offering training for
Yeah, a
people
lot of this
as
stuff here is on
Yep.
Microsoft Learn,
yep.
and it's free. Ignore the special super secret version I get because I'm work for Microsoft. But it's learn.microsoft.com, and it has a whole bunch of stuff. So it's not just doesn't have to be just just AI or whatever. I mean, everything that we make, we have some kind of training path for it, whether it's Dynamics, Power Platform, IoT, Intelligent Edge, that sort of thing. We have all of these learning paths, you know, and they help you get certified. And there's Learn TV where they have, which I guess is kind of like a Channel 9 type thing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. So there's a ton of resources out there, and you and I have been talking about, the coming shift, and
Yes.
we've been talking about it for years now. At this point, isn't that crazy? For years.
It is crazy. We've been
more
at
than
the
2
podcast thing
years.
for more than 3 years. You believe that?
Yeah, more than 3. Gosh, and we've kind of seen it. I love if you follow Frank on TV, and I think you did a data point about the automation at Walmart, the cleaning.
Yes. And we did a whole show, actually. It was one of our first data-driven episodes on that we actually live streamed first.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think
And we were
covered
talking about that.
the 3 R's. Was it retail, retooling, and robotics, or something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Um,
And we had both seen the Walmart robot. The one at the farmer Walmart had one of those cleaning robots, as did the one up there in Maryland, which is interesting. We're usually behind the times down here, Frank.
you mean Farmville is rural?
It is a bit, yes. I was surprised. So I wasn't surprised to see the cleaning robot, but I was surprised that it wasn't pulled by a horse. Bad joke. No, we're actually
it
farmers-
wasn't a cleaning robot. I actually looked it up, and it's,
No way.
Yeah, it's it has a bunch of cameras on it, and the cameras were to check the shelves and see if things are out of place.
No way. Okay.
That's what it was for. Yeah, which is clever, particularly in a pandemic. I think the pandemic is going to accelerate robotics and because if you don't have to touch it, if a person doesn't have to touch it, I think people are going to be a lot more comfortable with it.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I agree with you.
You know.
Yeah.
And what is the URL to Learn TV? Let's find out.
Should I look this up? Because you've got a lot of other stuff.
I always have a lot of stuff going on. Apparently, it's docs.microsoft.com/en-us/learn/TV.
That's what
Although I
I'm saying.
imagine this part here is probably dependent on your locale. So
Yeah, I'm seeing the same screenshot. I didn't want you to reveal anything since you're inside the mothership.
right. No, I was like, oh, let's move past that real quick.
You did well.
But that actually it's a cool thing that Bing will do. So if you search for something on Bing, it'll actually provide, because I'm logged in as me, it'll provide like kind of internal search results too.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah. But cool, man. Good on you, man. I mean, you're making a real impact on people's lives. Should I accept a cookie from you, by the way?
Sure.
Should I trust you? Are you going to track everything I buy on Amazon or whatever?
Those kinds of cookies. Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm
Well-
taking you to the cleaners, Frank. I've got
taking me to
all
the
of your data. All of your data are belong to me. Just saying. No, I don't. You have to do that these days. Does yours have one? One of those cookie things?
I'm
Frank's
afraid
world.
to answer because some people may be watching in the European Union and
Don't. Okay, forget I said that. I'm rewinding.
Right. This is the perils of live streaming. Here's an actual comment, good comment. All our comments are good, but Mark pointed out that yes, pandemic has changed work forever. Many jobs won't come back, and many others will change into new things. You know, it's funny. It's funny he mentions that because do you know what Royal Farms is, or is that just like a northern? They're not even in Northern Virginia, to my knowledge. I think it's just like a Philly area, Delaware area.
I haven't heard of it, but
Okay,
what is
so
Royal Farms?
So, yeah, so if you don't get the reference, All Your Base Will Belong to Us was probably one of the world's first memes out there. But before I go down that rabbit hole, I will go down another rabbit hole.
Yeah, talk to me about Royal Farms.
So I'll do Royal Farms. The Royal Farms is it's a convenience store, right?
Okay.
Kind of like 7-Eleven, Wawa, Sheetz, Quick Check, that sort of thing. And this one's based out of they're based out of Delaware, right, basically, and they kind of I think there's an arena there, the sports arena called Royal Farms Arena in Baltimore. So like they're really big, and I tell you, man, they have the best fried chicken you wouldn't believe. I haven't tried.
Mark just said that Western fries.
Yeah, I haven't tried that. Unfortunately I do keto, so I may be a while before I try the Western fries. But
Yeah.
their coffee is real good, and they actually sell Krispy Kreme donuts and
I think those are keto.
Krispy
Krispy
Kreme donuts.
I think so.
Oh, if only. If only they're
I'm
not.
trying to help, Frank. Well,
I
actually, that
understand.
may not be helping, depending on.
But anyway, they got
But
a lot of good food. But the reason why I point this out, I don't know if it's on their website, but it turns out they weren't always a convenience store. They started. Yeah, the fried chicken is, even though technically speaking, the fried chicken is not keto. I will stop the
just
diet.
take the skin off, Frank. Take the
Oh
skin
yeah,
off.
that's a good idea. I didn't do
Yeah.
that. So there's a sign, and I took a picture of it, and I was going to do a data point about it. I just haven't gotten to it yet. They have a whole sign of their history, and basically they were a dairy farm.
No way.
They were a
Hence the
data.
name.
What do you say?
I said, hence the name, Royal Farms.
Yeah, so they were a dairy farm, and there was this whole thing about how they used to be like the they had a sorry, my wife's messaging me about who's picking up the kids.
Uh-oh.
So bear with me. They had a whole thing about how they used to be the milkman, right? The milkman, right? That would come and deliver the milk.
Yeah.
And then there was I really like the verbiage of it, of how they said they changed their business to adapt with the times, something like that. Because again, if you remember, one of the first data points we did was called something is afoot at the Circle K.
Right.
And Circle K, there's Circle K in Maryland, near where I live, and I thought it was funny because we talk about how data is the new oil.
Right.
We talk about that a lot, but what people I don't think realize is that if you go back 100 years, the concept of a convenience store attached to a gas station probably doesn't resonate.
Crazy talk. Yeah.
Crazy talk. So, I mean, it's just a new business model. And I think that dovetails nicely into what Mark said, is that this is going to, combined with digital transformation and the pandemic, I think we're going to see the creation of new business models. I mean, certainly virtual summits, the training work you're doing, the world will get back to something that looks like normal, but it'll never be the same again. And yes, that was the reference. Bill and Ted's There's Something Afoot at the Circle K.
It's us.
So Mark said he was born and raised in Baltimore, so I guess he knows all the good. I'll have some questions for him about some food stuff.
Is that actually pronounced Baltimore? Because a few people I've met from there tell me they're from Balmer.
Balmer, yeah, like Steve Ballmer.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes, it's called that. They call everyone Hun. They like end the sentence with Hun, which is I think it's endearing.
It is.
But
Not a
it's kind of like
complaint.
when I say "use guys,"
Yes. And
Yeah.
I say y'all.
and you say "y'all."
Yes.
Yes. Here's a good example that he pointed out here. Right, wineries are shipping wine to buyers around the country. I mean, you can't go to do the wine tasting things and stuff like that. So it's an interesting. I mean, you're right, and it's the clever wineries that are going to go through this. And if you look, there's a commercial. I think I forget who it was for, but they showed like all the brands that came about during the Great Depression. Harley Davidson, like a handful of other brands kind of were created, and I think this has the opportunity to really boost innovation. In that kind of creativity. And you're seeing that with wineries or, who knows what's going to come out of this. And we've talked about kind of expanding the work you've done with your free stuff and the Lemons to Learning Summit.
Yes.
Which, trust me, we have not forgotten. We've gotten emails from folks that want to help. We appreciate that. It's just craziness on your end, craziness on my end. We definitely will have it. We still have access to the software to do the virtual summits and stuff like that. It's just been kind of preoccupied with other stuff, unfortunately. I hate saying that because that sounds like an excuse.
I'll say, and I know from my part, I have been, and it is an excuse, but it's a kind of good excuse.
Yes.
So, just leave it at that.
So yeah, so I don't know where we're going with this.
I don't know either, but I love the all of the opportunities for people to learn
Absolutely.
and to to score training for free or little, very little. And there's just tons of opportunity out there. And now I think it's coinciding with a lot of people having some time that they can invest in it for better or worse reasons. But this will end. One of my favorite news anchors likes to say at the end of his show, we are one day closer to all of this ending.
Right.
Well,
Well,
I think he's right.
I think to what my my grandmother used to say, this too shall pass. I mean, it's
Yes.
I mean, there's been plagues and stuff throughout human history, and in the cosmic scheme of things, there's a lot of debate of what the actual fatality rate of COVID is. Let's not dive into the debate, but it's somewhere between 1% and 3%. I think we can all agree on that,
Right.
or less than 1%, right? So somewhere 3% or under. The bubonic plague took out 30%.
Yeah.
Ebola has a 75 to 80% mortality rate.
Yeah.
As bad as COVID is, it could be much worse.
Yeah.
And
Very
maybe
true.
this is a wake-up call to realize, like, hey, maybe we should rethink, worldwide travel, or maybe amp up our abilities to screen for these things, or I don't know. Like, it's just as bad as this is. This could be much, much worse.
Right.
I used to do
I
talks.
concur.
I used to do talks, encouraging high school kids to STEM and stuff like that, and I'd say to them, like the bubonic plague or the black plague, whatever it was called in the 1300s, took out 1/3 the population. Some places it was more, but let's just say it's 1/3. That means look to the left of you and look to the right of you. One of you ain't going to make it.
Yeah. So true.
And I know that sounds morbid, but this sort of thing happens throughout history. Again and again. And
Yeah.
I mean, like Mark said, this is small potatoes. I mean, there's a meme going around where it shows it's from the Ten Commandments movie, and it's like Ramses laughs at you for just complaining about one plague.
I saw that.
And hey, Yasmin, I see you're online. How things are going? Well, yeah, it takes a while to get used to wearing the mask.
Yeah.
One day we'll all look back and laugh at it.
But today ain't the day.
Today is not the day.
That's true.
But
Very true.
yeah, and he brings out this interesting point, right? Like, I hope if nothing else comes out of this, we really rethink the supply chain.
Yeah.
I hope if nothing else comes out of this, we really rethink the supply chain, because it's not anti-fragile,
Very true.
and it was just, craziness. I mean, it's optimized for cost and efficiency, not resilience. That's ultimately, I
Right.
think, what we've learned.
And it
So-
turns out that we need that resilience is important.
Well, resilience, lack of resilience leads to toilet paper shortages and hand sanitizer shortages and stuff like that. Stuff we're not really used to in at least a generation.
Yeah.
We've been very lucky, in terms of that. I hope so too. I hope this will be a blip in the radar. There's actually a really good YouTube channel. It's Dr. Campbell. He's a British doctor who's been really spot on about kind of predicting this and how this will go and stuff like that.
Mhm.
He's been optimistic lately, so that brings my blood pressure down a bit.
That's a good call. Definitely. There are some things that are happening that are historic,
Yeah.
and that you're thinking about supply chain, and especially, in optimizing for time. And hopefully, I believe, and I'm going to believe this until I'm proven wrong, that time and efficacy both
Yes.
in vaccine development. I've never heard of what's going on in the U.S. and I know it's going on around the world as well. Other countries' companies are jumping on vaccine creation, and not just that, Frank, but once they see positive results in other testing, as they move into human trials, they are manufacturing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of doses just in case it works.
Right.
And that's the part that's mind-boggling to me, and I think it's a great response.
No, I totally agree. It's an interesting situation, and part of it is what's fascinating is the way this vaccine's being made is it's using basically RNA only to create the vaccine. And that's never really been tested at scale, although I suppose it is now, or will be soon. So I don't know. I mean, it's very easy to turn on the news and despair. And I think what we're saying is, it's like, here's a good example. The Black Plague killed 1/3 of the population, but that left land to take over and become the first middle class. And what's also interesting too is that there's, I think it's Curiosity Stream or something. There's a thing about like Black Plague, and it basically ended serfdom.
Yes,
at least in Western Europe, because there was not enough labor to go around, so labor had a chance to kind of have a say. And they can say, like if you were a serf, you couldn't leave. You couldn't leave the whatever lord's land you were on. But what happened is there was mass migration to the cities, to elsewhere, because what was the lord going to do? Like the landlord did not have the capacity to do anything about it, and it really, that changed society, and I think to a certain extent this will too, although maybe not as much, because it's the death rate thankfully is much lower.
I think obviously things like business, real estate, especially in New York and San Francisco and places like that, which frankly was due for some sort of correction anyway. This greatly accelerated that.
Absolutely.
The gig economy, I think, was poised to cross the chasm already.
Right.
And, and you and I have both worked remotely for years
right.
and years. So the fact that I think CIOs, CTOs were forced to confront the technology that's been around for at least 15 years. I say that because I've been working remotely for 15 years.
When I was 15 years ago, when I was living in Richmond, the building we were in would frequently have power issues. Not frequently, but there was like a month where we would lose power or internet, right? So what I would do is I just go to the Panera across the street.
Right.
I called it AWS, my alternate work site. Now AWS means something completely different.
There you go.
But when the power did go back on, people would be pinging me like, "Where are you?" I'm in my alternate work site. Well, where's that? Panera across the road.
Right. I kept billing.
Yeah, that's basically what I said. Because like one project manager gave me grief for leaving the building, and I'm like, I'm still billing. I don't know about you.
Fair enough.
That's the storied Panera where we organized Richmond Code Camp, the first one.
I remember that.
Yep.
And I believe we also restarted the SQL Server users group in Richmond.
It is a storied Panera, almost as storied as the Dunkin' Donuts in Gaithersburg.
Almost.
Mark also points out that AI and ML can be used to test mutations along with high-performance compute as well. Yeah, this is interesting because this is the first plague of the data era, and we're seeing kind of that, in terms of debate over the veracity of the data, but that's a conversation for another day.
Right.
But I think what's more important, in my mind, what's more critical is the ability to analyze all of this. Analyze all this data and the genomics type work that Lynn, one of our former guests, is really into.
Yep.
I think there's enormous, potential there. And we haven't heard from Lynn. I'm assuming she's very busy right now with all of this going on. So I definitely would love to have her back on the show and see if she's done anything COVID related and kind of see where that landed.
I can reach out.
Yeah.
I can reach out and see what she's up to, and try. We're acquaintances / friends.
Yeah,
And,
we should also have Kim Schmitz up to submission. I think my former business partner Kim.
Cool. Okay.
She's having an interesting update soon. And so Mark asks, where do I get into Code Camp?
Well,
This one time at Code Camp. No, there's actually going to be a Code Camp in Philadelphia, November 20th. It's virtual, so don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
They are going to come up with a call for speakers. I was honored that somebody emailed me out of the blue and said, hey, would you be willing to speak? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
wow.
So I
Good
was like,
job,
whoa,
Frank.
cool. People know about me, and they actually want me to speak there. That's cool.
You are the Frank Lavinia.
You are the Andy Leonard. On more than one internal call, it's come up like there's like an internal Teams channel. Don't want to reveal too much, but it's basically folks up and down the Northeast said something about, if you're looking for information on Azure Data Factory, you got to talk to, check out Andy Leonard's stuff. And a bunch of people, wrote on there like, oh wow, yeah, he has this blog too. And I piped in. I was like, yeah, he's got a podcast. His co-host is a little bit of a jerk, but the podcast.
That is not true. It's always weird when I hear you shared that with me earlier, and I always have the same reaction. I'm like, I've been stuck in here with me for 57 years, and I am not impressed. It's just I like to write, Frank, and you're the same way. You enjoy posting and putting stuff out, and you're not doing it. I mean, you collect metrics on it and stuff like that, but it's more reactive than it is proactive, and it is a little bit of incentive. Don't get me wrong, and I'm the same way.
Right.
To especially when you get an email like the one.
That was cool. That was a cool email. Yeah. And for those of you just joining, Andy offered a bunch of free training for folks who lost their job because of COVID. And the short of it is that, this one gentleman found a job. I'm sure more people have found jobs, but you've been getting feedback and stuff like that. Because it's an important time to retool,
Absolutely.
The job market is not going to look the same post-COVID than it did pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I think folks really have an opportunity to kind of retool. Don't just sit around and watch Netflix or binge watch the new season of The Boys, which is excellent, by the way.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's good. They just released 3 episodes, but each one of them.
Really? Are they trickling them out now?
Yeah, every Friday, which I kind of hate.
All right, I'm going to wait and then go watch them all at once.
That's what I wish I did, but anyway.
But Frank, I would say be like Frank. Frank talked about, after a little bit later in the show, if you're just joining, Frank talked about his riff from Microsoft almost 4 years ago.
Yep.
And what Frank's done since then. How many certifications have you gotten since then, Frank?
66, with 67 and 68 in the pipe.
Come on, man. I mean, that's
Thank
applause
you.
right there, Frank.
Thank you.
That's awesome. You did it. You did it right, and you're right. Well, yes, watch some TV because there's some cool shows out there and stuff you may enjoy. Do other stuff, but don't just try and entertain yourself through this. This is an awesome opportunity to do all of the things. All of the things.
So I want to address Mark's comment there. Dinosaurs, learn from dinosaurs, adapt and embrace change. Dinosaurs did survive the dinosaur apocalypse. They're called birds now, right? But
we've got a bearded dragon downstairs.
Look at that.
There you go, Frank. There's Frank Lavinia's book.
10 years ago, I was the Silverlight Guru. That would not pay the bills today, I assure you. So,
stuff comes and goes, right?
What?
You know this. Stuff comes and goes. But here's the key out of that. Yes, you wrote about a technology, but there's a lot in that book that's more about architecture in general.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of that, almost all of that, still applies in 2020.
Right. I mean, like, I don't regret writing that book because, one, I'm not
Yeah.
now a published author. I don't have as many books to my credit as you, not yet, but but still, like, it's something I always wanted to do. It was on my bucket list, become a published author. I did it. And, I kind of laugh now that it was about Silverlight. But you know what? I mean, you don't write a technology book for lasting improvement. There's probably only, two, maybe three computer science books or technology books that actually do have a long shelf life. I'm
Yeah.
thinking the Gang of Four book, and the I'm gonna butcher his last name, but it was the book about C and C++.
Yeah. Yep.
Bjorn.
I'm looking around. I've got a few of them here. Here's
Startup. Sounds like startup, but it's not.
here's an old one, but oldie but a goodie.
Oh yeah, that is a good one. Code complete.
Yeah, Code
Yeah.
Complete. I'll put the.
I had
the
that
name of
keyboard
it.
too.
Do you?
Yeah. But no, I mean, it's true. And I get in trouble sometimes because they want me to speak and encourage kids to get into STEM, and I'm like, STEM is a great field. Like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
But don't get into technology if you don't like learning, because if you hate learning, because this changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from writing about Silverlight to Windows Phone to Windows 8 apps, and I don't touch client-side code anymore.
Yeah.
That's somewhat of an intentional decision.
No way.
But that's a story for another day.
Now you do data.
Now I do data and AI, and part of that is that math is math, and it doesn't matter whose data center you're running on or what platform you're running on. Logistic regression is logistic regression, whether it's in scikit-learn, Python, not Python, PySpark, not PySpark. Ugh. You get the idea.
I do. I know what you're talking about.
Cool. So Mark is a doctor of engineering, and he has a scholarly paper published.
I
Nice.
see that. I'm following the link and then the link from that to
Nice. We definitely have to have you on the show, sir. Maybe both shows. Maybe for Data Driven and Impact Quantum.
Yeah.
But ML too. Cool. That's awesome.
Awesome.
But we forget what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's been a long day.
It has been a long day. I've been delivering that training all day, which is exhausting for me. I leave it all on the feed.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think we both like helping people, and I think that's what led us to podcasts, what led us to blog, and all these things.
Starting user groups, just
starting user
start
groups.
code camps.
Yep.
It's
It's not just the free pizza, which you can't even get that anymore anyway.
true.
So, but I think it's a good opportunity to retool. If you need help, ping either Andy or I. We're not that hard to find online. I spend most of my time on LinkedIn these days, not so much Twitter, not so
Same.
much Facebook.
Yeah, same here.
But what was actually interesting is I didn't realize how data-driven we were until there were a lot of things that went into the creation of the second podcast. One of which was, if you go to franksworld.com, there's a chat bot there, and it asks you, like, hey, any topic in particular you want to know more about. A lot of people would hit my blog and ask about quantum computing, which I thought was interesting. And that kind of, in my head anyway, made sense. I had a gut feeling, but the data kind of bore it out too.
Yeah.
So,
And you only had a few posts up about it, relatively speaking.
I post 100 plus per month, but yeah, so less than 2 or 3%. Less than 2 or 3% were quantum computing. But yeah, so, and I actually did another live stream where I kind of explained how I do so many blog posts per month. I've automated a lot of it. This here will be chopped up. If you think it's worthy to be as a podcast episode.
Already. Yeah.
You're nodding yes. So, okay, cool.
Great stuff.
Yeah, I guess you can't see that on the podcast, but this will be chopped up and like kind of automated. Not chopped up. That sounds like a chop shop. But we're not a chop shop.
No.
We're just repurposing because we have finite time.
Yep.
So the question is, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
No, that's it. I was just saying, yep. But Mark did ask, what code will peeps learn in November?
So Code Camp is all over the map. You could probably speak at it too, honestly, Mark. Code Camp is kind of like it's a free organized conference, a bit like Azure Data Fest, if you're familiar with that. It's essentially what Data Fest was trying to replicate in just a more of a pure data format. If you're familiar with that, so if you're not familiar with that, Code Camp is kind of like this movement where you had a community-led event. It used to be everywhere. It used to be the hot thing, but it's kind of fragmented. There are still big code camps that happen: South Florida, Philadelphia, New England, I know for sure, and Silicon Valley Code Camp as well. Obviously, now that they're all virtual, I mean, you and I used to travel, to like regional ones.
Yep.
I would come down to Richmond after I moved out. I would go to the New Jersey Code Camp. You went to the New York City Code Camp, right?
I think so.
And Dublin Code Camp, or was that SQL Saturday?
So that was a SQL Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, which is kind of like a code camp. It's a similar format, free and open, but it was focused on all things SQL Server.
Right.
More of those, but yep, code camps are all over. And I want to say the last one I spoke at may have been Raleigh.
Raleigh still has them. Yeah, they used to be
really
big, but they've changed formats because to be a code camp, you have to adhere to a certain list of things. Some people like that list. Some people wanted to change it. So yeah, can you come to learn scripting or basics of code? Absolutely. I don't know what the schedule is. I'll have to connect you with the organizers of the Philly one. I know that they used to be held back in the before time. They used to be held in Microsoft offices very commonly. Reston, Philly, the New England one as well.
Yep. So philly.net.org.
Yep. Philly.net.org.
Seems to have some of those. It looks like they've got. I just searched for Philadelphia Code Camp, and I see a meetup 2020.1 that it's talking about Philadelphia Code Camp 2020.1. It looks like that was the last one that they had.
Philly Code Camp. The Philly.net folks have really they do a lot of streaming, even before the COVID pandemic. They were very much ahead of that, so they've transitioned well.
Yep, and it's a strong community leadership there. Definitely.
No, absolutely. Philly might have been the one that's a 2-day. Philly and New England, it was like a 2-day type thing. People would camp in a parking lot back in the day, in the before time.
Before time. I caught that earlier.
Yeah, I heard that this weekend. It was like in the before time.
That's a good way to say that.
Yeah, I can see that. Because there's going to be two aspects of this, right? There's going to be, eventually the pandemic will end. And there's going to be a time when it's safe, and then there's going to be a time when most people will feel safe again. Those are two different timescales.
Yes.
How different they are, well, we'll find out.
Yeah.
I would imagine a vaccine that's been successfully tested and is reliable will probably go a long way. But, you think about the youth. I mean, my grandmother would have been, a child during this, and she always had a thing about like germs and washing stuff and cleaning stuff down. Like, now I think I know how that came about.
And we're going to be that generation for the next few decades.
Right.
Us and our children and children's children. Yeah.
Well, I mean, was it Yasmin earlier commented that she doesn't like wearing a mask, but there's some kids, like, somebody I used to work with was saying that her toddler, like, as soon as they say, hey, we're going out, she runs and grabs a mask. Like, so to her, it's going out requires a mask. Just an interesting data point, if you will.
It is, and I don't know if you've done this or not, Frank. But I'll see snippets of video online, and it'll be of crowds, and I'll look at my reaction is you're you're too close, and
Right.
nobody's wearing a mask. And-
Or like you watch like old TV shows where they're all in a restaurant or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, who would do that?
Yeah, we notice it because
Right.
we've changed already.
Right. No, that's
So-
true.
What's the what comes from here? I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
I do know that it will be different from what it is now. People talking about a new normal.
Yeah.
I hope we get to a new normal, and that
There's
sounds
always a
really
new normal.
pessimistic, isn't it, Frank?
There's always a new normal. There's always a new normal. You think back to 9/11,
True.
right? And
Very
the anniversary of that is on Friday. And for those of you who don't know, I was across the street when the South Tower fell,
Yeah.
right? And the world of traveling on airplanes was very different before that too.
True.
You know, if humanity and civilization has taught us anything, it's like we're very adaptable.
That is true, and I'm sure we will adapt to this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the new normal is, we will get
Right.
there. But it's going to be interesting, I think, to see how this shakes out. And as Mark pointed out about the Black Plague spawning the middle class, who
Right.
knows? We may end up with yet another economic class or two.
Right. Well, we
As a
can certainly
result.
use more than the two we kind of are headed towards. But
Goodness, Mark, he says he was in the Pentagon when the plane hit. My gosh.
wow,
I can't imagine what either of you went through.
wow.
You,
Well,
Mark,
it's a-
or Frank.
It's a good thing you made it out. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
That's a good thing I was late for work.
Frank has an amazing story. Is it still up, Frank?
It
At
is franksworld.com/WTC.
There's a
But
lot of
before you-
photos.
I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead. It's a lot of photos and a good narrative.
Yeah,
Frank's
good
an excellent
narrative.
writer, by the way.
Thank you. That was part of my healing, was writing about it and kind of all the stuff. But the design of it is very 2001, 2002-ish. And every time I want to update it, the content is just like, nah, it's okay.
Frank, I think it's part of the story now, the way
Right.
that you recorded that, and the fact that it is from that era
Right.
in the web. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. Most of the HTML on that was Photoshop generated, because Photoshop used to have a thing. If you point it to a directory of images,
Yeah.
it would build out a photo album like that for you.
No way. I didn't know
Way.
that.
So, yeah, I don't even know if Photoshop still has that feature, because they probably prefer to do something else. But anyway, so a lot of the HTML in there, if you look at it, it's like, do people look at the view source anymore like they used to? I don't think they do.
I don't think so. I do, because I'm trying to find something.
Yeah, same here. Or I'm trying to build a screen scraper, to scrape data. But
Frank, 20 plus years ago, I'd say between 25 and 20 years ago, I actually taught a lot of churches and organizations how to use HTML,
oh, cool.
and how to build. It was very basic, static pages, and my tool of choice was Notepad.
It was the best development tool until Dreamweaver 1.2 came out.
I still
In my
said,
opinion.
even if you did use any of the other tools, and I pointed out some of the other tools that were out there, some I won't mention now because they weren't as good, but whatever.
They don't exist anymore either. Like
Some of them don't, yeah.
Front Page, Hot Metal, Hot
Front
Dog.
Page was the one I was thinking of. But
Yeah.
Front Page would, if you could not figure out how to generate what you wanted, what I would tell them was just go view the source,
Right.
copy that, paste it into Notepad, and then make it, if you understand how it's structured, how it works.
Right. No,
know,
absolutely.
Notepad will work all the time, every time. You may not
Speaking-
be able to figure out.
No, absolutely. Yeah, so actually that actually inspires me. So one of the things I want to do. So do you know what next month is? You said 20, 25 years?
No.
Frank's World launched 25 years ago next month.
In October, right?
Yep.
Wow, Frank.
So what I was thinking of doing, because part of the reason why we launched the second show now, because we've been talking about doing a second show for a better part of a year,
Yeah.
was I found out that with my current podcasting hosting provider, that's a lot of words to string together. But the people who serve out our podcast, they let us have an unlimited number of shows. So what some folks do is they'll do like a limited run series. So what I want to do is I want to do a limited run series of the history of Frank's World. Because it's 25 years.
Frank, yes.
All right, cool, man.
The Frank's World movie.
The Frank's World movie. So yeah, 25 years ago. Yeah, I remember it was a different era on the web.
It was crazy different.
It was crazy different. And I think the earliest ones, if you go to the Wayback Machine, which is an archive of websites, the earliest recording of it is 96 or 97.
Okay.
Because I didn't have my own domain name, strictly speaking, until 1996. Because it was like $200-$300 then. It was ridiculously expensive.
Yeah.
For this newfangled thing called the web. But I mean, through that time, like, I worked at BarnesandNoble.com in the early days, and Lord, do I have some good stories about that.
Speaking of that, for our other show, we are Audible sponsors,
Yes.
Data Driven, and you and I, you finished this because you listen to like 20 audiobooks a day. That's not true, but Frank does listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I think you listen to them faster and way more than I do because I can't keep up. But there's one about the Everything Store, the story of Amazon, and you're not mentioned in there by name, but you were in the thick of that because you were Barnes and Noble's
first webmaster.
Yeah.
Yep.
Frank was the man. And he was competing against Jeff Bezos. No lie.
Frank was.
Head with Jeff Bezos.
And now I am again. It's kind of funny how full circle things have gone. Yeah, that'll be a story. Maybe that'll be a teaser for the Frank's World 25th anniversary one because, some of the things, some of the things that happened in there are some of the people mentioned in the book by name called me out and said I didn't know what I was doing because we were supposed to launch in 1996.
Oh wow!
And through a series of funny coincidences, the leadership, who is mentioned in the book by name of Barnes & Noble, basically decided to postpone the launch. And there was a very tense meeting where I was like, we can't miss this holiday season. If we miss this holiday season, we're not going to have Mindshare. Mindshare was a relatively new word back then, right?
Right.
A relatively new concept. And they basically, the guy mentioned in the book told me I didn't know what the bleep I was talking about. And I should stick to computers and let him sell the books.
How'd that work out for him, Frank?
I'm not one to gloat, but somebody's worth $200 billion and someone's not.
There's
history,
that.
I think, has spoken, has sided with me.
I agree.
So Mark says he has to take off.
See you,
Thanks,
Mark.
Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching live.
Great
Definitely have to
comments.
get you on the show.
Yes.
All right. So I have to jet. But thanks for watching. And as always, thanks for listening to Data Driven. Go to thedatadrivenbook.com. You can listen to that book for free. They are a sponsor of the show. They'll kick us back a little bit of money. Helps us finance some of our bigger dreams and projects to help you and other people learn data science and AI.
Yep.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Any parting thoughts, Andy?
Nope.
Awesome. You have a great day.